How about now? Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, yeah. I don't know what happened there. It got changed to a device that clearly does not exist. It wasn't even that. I didn't even mute the OBS mic. So I had to change the properties. Anyway, here we go. We're back now. I just missed a whole bunch of stuff. Alright, so let me start from the top. Hello. It is me. Welcome back to Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. We're on Case 4 right now, which means if you're not caught up on what's going on so far, we're on the second day of Case 4, which means if you're not caught up, this is your warning. Because, like, crazy shit has gone down, and if you don't want to be spoiled, don't be spoiled. Cool. Flag, how are you? I was, you managed to pull ahead of me. I see, I was asking if you finished the game because I saw you chugging along. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well, my friend. I also want Lord Van Seeks to step on me. So, you know, that was the first thing I started with, and I wanted to make sure that I said that again on a recording for everybody to hear me. Thank you for letting me know that I was not, you know. You have homework open that you're not working. Oh, that's a mood. That's a mood, my dude. No one's asleep. I still can't believe what just happened. I know. I inquired with the bailiff after the court session was adjourned, and it seems Mr. Vigil was taken to hospital to recover. Right. 10 years ago now, Mr. Vigil attempted to commit suicide by jumping out of the window of the prison governor's office. But ever since then, he's completely blocked the memory of those events from his mind. I don't think I even really processed what was happening until, like, after the stream. I don't think I really processed that whole thing, but yeah, nobody knew his secret. Not his family, not even the man himself. But I forced it out into the open. Was it wrong of me to do that? Did I overstep the mark, I wonder? Bruno! Oh, Iris. You are miles away. Anyway, I've brewed a fresh pot of soothing tea for you. Oh, thank you. You and Susie have had an exhausting day so far, haven't you? Oh. Thank you, Iris. How thoughtful of you. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is? When we came out of the courtroom back into the defendant's antechamber, he disappeared. Oh, no, I don't know. He just suddenly sprang to his feet and left. All he said was, I must leave. I wonder if he's pursuing the mystery of Inspector Gregson's death. Well, you know what Hurley's always saying, don't you? There are mysteries in this world that should perhaps never be solved. But the construction of a solution comes only at the expense of the destruction of something else. What does that mean? He knows very well that when you open someone else's old wounds, you often open your own too. He just can't take his own advice and leave well alone. Solving mysteries is too important to him. That's so true. So true, Iris, so true. But that's what I like about Hurley, after all. I suppose that's a lot of a great detective in some ways. So then, let's have tea and then I'll give you a hand. Oh, do you have time, Iris? Yes, I finished this month's manuscript at last, with barely a day to spare before the deadline. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. A brand new story to read in the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You know, I always hide Hurley's violin in the days before I have a deadline. You do? Come on, Mr. Scholl. Oh my god. Good work, Iris. I'm sure that's very wise, Iris. How sensible of you. Now then, my dear fellows, let's make a plan of action before we continue our investigation. Was this what to do? Oh, okay, we actually have to talk to her. This morning's trial. So, how did it go in court this morning? Well, we still don't know the truth about what really happened, but one thing's increasingly clear. Lord Van Zieks definitely didn't do it. That's what I've been saying. There was no chance that that man did it. Oh, goody. Yes, that's right. We managed to uncover several new facts as well. Oh, really? And there was another development, too. Zuma. Yes, it's quite clear now that Kazuma-sama is not himself. The way he's acting, it's almost as if he's Possessed? I know. I mean, at the end of the proceedings earlier, he was like a bloodhound the way he was chasing down Mr. Vigil's forgotten past. He's not normally so mercilessly persistent. What's going on in his head, I wonder? Really need to sit down with Kazuma and try to understand what he's going through. That's Genshin's impact for you. If Gregson was really murdered the day before his body was discovered, then Lord Benziques has to be innocent, you see. What? The day before? Well, that should be easy enough to work out just by examining the corpse, surely. Yes, you would expect so, but curiously, no time of death was included in the autopsy report. That is curious. There are still unanswered questions about Lord Benziques, though, aren't there? Ah, do you mean... I mean, what was he doing there on Fresno Street that day in the first place? Well, according to the man's testimony, he said he was investigating Inspector Gregson, didn't he? And it turns out that little room was actually the inspector's secret office. Oh, that sounds like it has all the makings of a wonderfully devilish plot. But then why was that notice board in there covered in all those particular papers? Papers about cases with a link to the Reaper. I'm starting to get a bad feeling about this. Oh dear, that sounds more like something horribly devilish. We must start by looking into Inspector Gregson's movements of late. Well, he doesn't have that many movements right now, unfortunately. I'm still like blown. My mind is still like blown that that he's gone. It's just a lot. I never imagined I might have to be investigating an inspector's movements. We're gonna take it out, test it for diseases, and that thing's going right in the trash. Well, according to the entry in his diary, he was carrying out an incognito investigation of the Red-Headed League the day before his death. Oh, you mean he was doing the same as Harley? Well, Mr. Sholmes was trying to apply, whereas the inspector was supposed to be investigating. I do wish it had been the other way around. Anyway, as it turns out, the inspector who went to investigate the Red-Headed League that day wasn't actually Gregson at all. It was Mr. Vigil, in possession of Gregson's identification. You know what that sounds like to me? Establishing an alibi. Oh my. Yes, you're absolutely right, Iris. But why would Gregson need an alibi? It would appear the inspector had something to do that he wished to keep secret. I don't believe it. I always thought he was just a harmless lover of fish and chips. But perhaps they were seasoned with something a little more potent than salt and vinegar. What? I think perhaps we should try to move away from food analogies. Hey Blue, how you doing, bud? 5 cupcakes. Well, anyway, if Lord Benziques felt the need to investigate Gregson... Yes, I agree. We must try to find out what he knows. Vigil, you say? Isn't that the name of the lady who came to visit Harley yesterday? That's right. I asked Mr. Sholmes if he would help her to find her missing husband. Was just island hopping in Animal Crossing? Nice. I'm doing alright, thank you. Woke up late, but that's okay. Only Mr. Sholmes completely passed the buck to us. Actually, didn't you say that Mr. Vigil had been taken to hospital? Do you know which one? Ah, it's St. Sinner's. I'm starting to wonder if all the other hospitals in London have closed down. Were we at St. Bart's recently? That's amazing, Bruno. You've found a lady's husband already. Well, I suppose I have. By accident. And 10 years ago, while Mr. Vigil was the chief warder at the prison, I couldn't remember the word warder for the life of me, honestly. It was... a couple days I was thinking about this, was like... can't think of the word warder. He was responsible for overseeing the professor's incarceration. No! So when the convict escaped, he was held responsible and immediately dismissed. Ugh, sometimes I really don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. There's more. For 10 years after that, while he was ostensibly working as a peddler, he also had another secret job. He was paid by Gregson to be his stand-in, to impersonate the inspector. To impersonate Gregson? But why? I have absolutely no idea. Ginny was right. I'm starting to think all adults are up to no good now. Including you, Bruno. I haven't paid anyone to impersonate me. That means he has ties to the professor and to Inspector Gregson, though. I do think we ought to pay a visit to Mr. Vigil, don't you? Back to St. Sinners, then. Well, I think it's clear what we need to do, innit? Let us investigate, my dear fellows. Oh, Iris, you're even more enthusiastic than usual today. If anyone has anything to hide, my special Wilson shooting iron will set them straight. That water pistol? It's stuffed full of a piping hot extra special blend of mine. I'm quite sure it will be very effective. Oh, she's gonna shoot them with tea. Hot tea. Spill the tea, Iris. I better be careful not to hide anything. Well, it feels a little strange that Mr. Sholmes is nowhere to be seen, but still. Let's go and see what we can find out. Yes! Iris' theme is so freaking bouncy, I love it. Oh, we can't go to Waterloo or the governor's office. Alright, let's go to Vigil's place. I want to see how he's doing. It seems like just yesterday we were here, we saw a mouse get killed. Oh sure, no one's here? I guess that means maybe we can examine. I think this is all the same, so a cheerful welcome message, perhaps. Let's see. Stay with good cheer, leave with good cheer. Well, look at that. You were spot on, Mrs. Suzato. It's full of cheer. I wonder how many discharged patients pay their medical bills with good cheer, though. Once I had to have a very painful injection when I fell ill with the cold. Felt awful already. So why did I have to suffer the sting of the injection as well as the bill? I yelled at the doctor. Oh dear, what terrible treatment. These two, I love them so much. The way she looks at you with such concern is so funny. Let's go to prison. What's up, cutie? How you doing? Lord Van Zieks is reading. Look. He doesn't seem like he wants visitors, does he? But he must have noticed that we're here, surely? What do you Nipponese want? That's no way to greet the lawyer who's trying his hardest to prove your innocence, is it? Perhaps not. I apologize. So, what can I do for you, Mr. Naruhodo? Lord Van Zieks, speaking earnestly. Oh, the fog will lift over London for the first time in months tomorrow. This does feel very, very strange. I must say, I was impressed. Oh, well, thank you. Not by you, by your fellow Nipponese, your prosecutor friend. Oh, I see. Yes. It's sardonic, don't you think? For a man such as me, so loathing of the Nipponese, to be entirely at the mercy of the two of you. I suppose it's retribution for having played the part of the Reaper all these years. Played the part? You once told me that you gladly allowed people to believe you were the Reaper, because it helped reduce the amount of serious crime that took place in London. If keeping quiet and playing the part benefits the cause, a cause I myself am committed to pursuing, then why would I choose to say anything? But the henchman of a criminal killed by the Reaper attacked you only the other day? And that was just the most recent of many attempts on your life, wasn't it? Someone is clearly profiting from your silence about all this. Someone is using you. Believe me, ever since the Reaper first appeared, I've been doing my utmost to expose him. Or rather, expose the organization. Ah, it's a whole organization? It's inconceivable that all those accidents were orchestrated by one man. No, the Reaper always appears to have very accurate information about the accused in each case. Which can only mean that somebody at Scotland Yard is involved. Was Gregson the Reaper? Someone, you can't mean... It's taken many years, but I finally identified the central figure in this Reaper organization. Tobias Gregson. Wow. Wow. No. No! Gregson, the Reaper? So, the reason you were investigating Inspector Gregson is because you intended to expose him as the Reaper? As I said, the Reaper of the Bailey is no single person. A highly secret organization with close ties to Scotland Yard. But there's no doubt that Gregson was a key member of that organization. I don't believe it. Are you saying that that he was behind all those awful criminals meeting there? Gregson didn't do the dirty work himself. Oh. He was the tactician. His job was to covertly investigate the marks and plot their assassinations. In order to do that without arousing suspicion, he regularly needed a firm alibi. Which is where Mr. Vigil came in, posing as the inspector. Vigil knows nothing of the Reaper, but the room he rents on Fresno Street was almost certainly the headquarters of the operation. Gregson would have met the assassin there for briefings. We don't actually know who carried out the killings then. Actually, I do have a name. You what? What? Tell me, bitch. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you a bitch. Well, if you can name the man, you have the true identity of the Reaper already then. Or if I can name the woman. Oh. She's a young woman by the name of Asa Shin. Oh, shit! No way. This is where A Shin comes in? Also, what a pun. Oh my god, you didn't even try with that one. Wait, what? Shin? Yep, Miss Asa Shin. The true name of a terrifying killer I know only too well. She came to Japan posing as a visiting student and murdered Dr. John H. Wilson. Then, just when it seemed that diplomatic protection would help her escape Japan and conviction, the mysterious woman was herself murdered in a small summer beach hut. And that woman was actually the Reaper of the Bailey? I can't believe. So Mr. Natsume actually seemed like he was in more danger going back to Japan then. That's crazy. Mr. Naruhodo, this perhaps isn't the place to discuss. No, of course not. We can't mention it here. The fact that she killed Dr. John H. Wilson. Because Iris doesn't know, and it's very likely the man was her father. Poor Iris. Huh? Asa Shin. I should let father know at once. Yes, I agree. That's crazy. It all comes together. Oh my god, stop. Kazuma, isn't it? Kazuma Asogi. You say he's a friend of yours? My best friend. He's the whole reason I got to come to Britain. It was all on his merits. I have nothing but respect for him. Yes, I understand that only the very best students are selected for such opportunities, and I had a fine demonstration of how sharp he is in the proceedings earlier today. He missed nothing. In fact, his flawless performance very much reminded me of his father. And Sasha? Oh, okay. Interesting. So was her nationality different? Genshin Aso, the professor. It's true that the aristocracy at the time was the root of numerous grave societal problems. They were abusing their power, playing with the common man as pawns in politics, in economics, in war. In many ways, Asogi was carving out a canker from society that we British couldn't deal with ourselves. Same nationality, just different English name, gotcha. I see. That's precisely why it makes no sense. Bint Van Zieks was a noble and upstanding man. He wasn't corrupt. Why did that damned Nipponese have to go and take my brother's life? I'm starting to get the picture that the professor didn't actually kill Clint Van Zieks, in spite of having once saved mine. He saved her life? How did that happen? I feel like we're going into a Joe Dark situation where the professor did all the killings except for the one that he was caught for. It was 10 years ago on a foggy night. What was to be the professor's final strike had sent a wave of panic through the capital. So Clint Van Zieks had already been killed at that point then. Genshin and I were walking down some back streets at a late hour. Of course, at that point, I had no idea of the true nature of the man at my side. Hey Westford, how you doing? All of a sudden... Who would... Don't make a peep, you're coming with us. We were surrounded. All of our assailants were armed with pistols, their faces obscured by scarves. Lip shrunk still in pain? Sorry to hear. I'm glad your lip shrunk at least, but hopefully the pain subsides. Clint was not only from noble heritage, he was a brilliant prosecutor as well. The scum of London hated the sight of him, and they had no sympathy for his younger brother either. I've been targeted several times before already. Yeah, it's Van Zieks alright, we got him. I could hear them murmuring amongst themselves. I knew they were after me. But just when I thought my time had come, I let them kill you. Clint would never forgive me. It was Asobi's voice, just a whisper in my ear. After that, I don't remember exactly what happened. The next thing I knew, there was silence all around. Genshin lay on the cobbled street. Blood was seeping from his left hand. It shielded me. 2 days later, they arrested him. On suspicion of being London's most notorious mass murderer ever, Professor. How awful for you. All at once, I lost the brother I revered and the foreign friend I held in such high regard. I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zieks. That's the end of my miserable tale. I never thought I'd recount it to anyone. Well, thank you for confiding in me. The Professor, the Reaper, and Inspector Gregson. I wonder just how intimately related they all were. I still can't quite believe that Gregson was essentially the Reaper, giving assassination orders to Giselle Brett. Mr. Naruhodo, let's go and inform my father. I'm sure our government will want to hear about this new information. Oh, that means I get to meet your daddy, Susie. Hooray! Yes, alright. Jesus Christ. Professor Mikotoba is definitely going to spill the secret about who her victim was. Oh good, it's letting me go back to the Great Water Room. I thought it yesterday and I think it again today. This place is so princely. A wild guess, but I have a feeling you'll think the same tomorrow too. My tea has a finer fragrance than whatever they're serving in the tea room here though, wouldn't you say? Ah, look who we have here. This is an unexpected pleasure. I hope it's the right person. Ah, Father. Oh, is this your daddy, Susie? How lovely. What a charming young lady. And you are? Oh, really? So you're the author of The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, are you? That's me, Iris Wilson, at your service, sir. Susie's been such a wonderful friend to me over the last year, you know. Well, Miss Wilson, I must say I read your work regularly and with much interest. Iris actually lives with Mr. Sholmes, you know, Father. Is that so? Well, perhaps that goes some way to explaining that bright look in your eyes. You wouldn't be smiling so airily if you just knew how bright, if you knew just how bright she is, believe me. Now then, young Naruhodo, it was a pleasure seeing you in action earlier, and as an invitee of the symposium, I was allowed to observe from the gallery, after I twisted some arms. And I must say, it was a truly exemplary performance. Oh, well, thank you very much. Although I'm fairly sure you admitted by Cosma on the end there. No, please don't misunderstand. It was you who impressed me. Really? You didn't miss a step against Asobu, and we all know how capable he is. Really, to have matured into such a fine defense lawyer in less than a year is quite extraordinary. Yeah. It's very kind of you to say so, and really nice to hear. What I saw in court today confirmed what I'd been hoping for. The favor I mentioned yesterday, Naruhodo. I trust you haven't forgotten. Oh, no, you did mention something, didn't you? But first, we have something to report, Father. Of course, of course. Shall we take tea while we discuss matters further? What did he say? I wonder what Judge Shikoku has got to. About the Reaper. Father, do you know about the so-called Reaper of the Bailey? I've heard rumors. Some members of the judiciary explained it all to me yesterday. Of course, when I was a visiting student here in London, the Reaper was yet to emerge. Right, he didn't appear until after that case when the visiting students had already returned home. Lord Van Zieks, who was in the dock today. That was Barak, the younger brother of Clint Van Zieks, I believe. That's right, and he's known throughout London as the Reaper, as you've heard. But the truth is, it wasn't him behind all of those mysterious deaths, it was somebody else. I see. So what you're saying is there's been a professional killer at work here? Exactly. Someone by the name of Asa Shin, in fact. I beg your pardon? Did you say Asa Shin? You mean that Giselle Brett woman who is responsible for killing my great friend? Oh no, a friend of yours was killed. Professor Mikotoba, I think perhaps we shouldn't discuss this right now. Because the friend the professor is talking about is Dr. John H. Wilson. And that's not something we want Iris to find out about. Not like this, anyway. I've just remembered something. Biscuits. This hotel has the most delicious looking biscuits. That was rather out of the blue. She's doing this deliberately. I think I'll go and see if I can purchase some. I wonder, would you like to come too, Iris? Oh, yes. Did you just try to leave me behind? So that young girl is called Iris Wilson, is she? Yes, that's right. And she's the great author of all those adventure stories starring the great Detective Sholmes. But the credited name of the author isn't Iris. The name of the credited author isn't Iris, is it? It's Dr. John H. Wilson. Yes, I know. That's the name of her father, you see. Her father? Dr. John H. Wilson. I was deeply indebted to the man for all the kindness he showed me during my time in London. That's why I was keen to reciprocate and invite him to the Imperial Yume University 4 years ago. But he was murdered last year by Giselle Brett. Why? Why would the hand of the Reaper stretch all the way to Japan? Iris knows nothing about that case, but it seems very likely that the victim, Dr. Wilson, was her father. Well, I can't say that we ever spoke about his family, so I don't know if he had a daughter or not. But I think I could say with some certainty that he was never the great detective's partner. So it could have been another Dr. Wilson, you think? Well, John and Wilson are both common names after all. Still, it's probably best not to mention this to the young lady until we can be sure. That's what we thought, yes. We're back with cinnamon biscuits. Ooh, they smell delicious, Iris. I think cinnamon will go very well with the tea they serve here, don't you, Susie? Yes, I'm sure you're right, Iris. Where is Judge Shikoku right now? I haven't seen Judge Shikoku for a while, have you? Guilty. Ha 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 ha. Guilty is still ringing in my ears. No, now that you mention it, I haven't seen him since this morning either. I suppose since the symposium's opening was postponed, they have gone to explore at the Great Exhibition. That reminds me of something you said about Judge Shikoku. Mentioned Judge Shikoku once having been in the dock himself. Oh yes, it was all tied up with that accursed trial. Proposed trial of Kazuma's father. Seishiro was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt, so he took the stand to testify, but he got a little carried away and, actually managed to break the witness stand. Oh my... He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire, for which he was charged with what, lèse-majesty? Oh dear. Although it's worryingly easy to imagine him doing that. Well, it was all right in the end. He was acquitted when we returned home, and we returned home to Japan together. Thank goodness. Ah yes, talking of Seishiro. I have a copy of the photograph we all took together here yesterday. Please. Oh, what a lovely picture. Something... I'm suspicious of a lot. Why would they give me this? It certainly seems to shout, we've arrived in Britain. Something's not right about why they're giving me that picture. None of us had any idea of what was coming when we took that, did we? No, that's so true. So true, Dad, so true. So, you mentioned a favor that you'd like to ask me. Well, this fateful trial that you're fighting, one way or another, it will be over before long. And when it is, I'd like you to accompany me back to Japan. You want me to do... What? Father, what's the meaning of this? Now, Susato, you should understand. You've seen how our courts work firsthand. Japan's judicial system is in its infancy, especially when it comes to defense. Oh, you mean... The Supreme Court of Judicature is in a desperate need of a good defense lawyer, as soon as possible. Really quite urgently, in fact. But I've not even been in London a year yet. I've read all of Susato's reports. I'm well aware of your extraordinary talents, and having seen you in action with my own eyes earlier today, there's no question. You, Naruhodo, are precisely the man our country needs. So you'd be leaving then, Bruno? But then what am I supposed to do, Father? You came here to serve as Asogi's judicial assistant. Oh yes, she's supposed to be Kasuma's assistant. Our government is still in the process of deciding how best to deal with the situation, though. You've always chosen your own path, Susato, and I trust your judgment. In this matter also. Mother. Please, the pair of you, don't look so downcast. It's merely a suggestion, you understand. A hope, if I'm honest, but I won't force you. All I ask is that you consider it, and come to a decision by the time this trial concludes. Yes, alright. You won't leave, will you, Ruto? The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. Up until now, I'd just been trying to do what I believed to be Kasuma's will. It turns out that he's still alive, so where does that leave me? Well, if you'll excuse me now, I need to telegram... Thank you for starting the song again. I need to telegram government ministers and the Japanese police with this information about Asa Shin. Of course, Father. Thank you. I look forward to next month's installment, Miss Wilson. Oh, good. And please, do come to Baker Street sometime, won't you? We'd love to entertain you. I would be delighted. The best of luck for tomorrow, Naruhodo. And give my suggestion your full consideration, won't you? Westerford, no, the game can't give me something nice without being suspicious. You know, Kazuma-sama has always meant a great deal to my father. I'm sure he'd love the chance to meet with him and talk to him about all of this. Yes, no doubt. Asa Shin. Of course, it's so obvious. So obvious. How could I have neglected to consider the possibility before now? Mr. Sholmes? Harley, where have you been? Why, I joined you all for tea, of course. What an extraordinary question. I didn't notice you at all. No matter, no matter. Anyway, to more pressing concerns. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? I must dispatch a telegram to your country at once. It is a matter of much urgency. To Japan, you mean? Tell me, to whom can I entrust the task? Quickly now, who? Well... My father has just now left to send a telegram to the Imperial Police Bureau of Japan himself. I see. Well, he looked reliable enough for a bearded fellow. I don't think what my father sports can be considered a beard, Mr. Sholmes. There's not a moment to lose. Kindly ask your trusty unshaven father to see this is sent. I will, but what is it? No questions at this time, if you please, Miss Susato. All we can do is pray that for once my deduction is awry. Doesn't that imply your deductions are normally correct, Mr. Schultz? Now then. You may be surprised to learn that I am a very busy man. I certainly have no time to hide behind settees and eavesdrop on other people's conversation. That's what joining us for tea meant. I leave the sending of this in your hands then, my dear fellows. Ah, wait a minute, Mr. Sholmes. He just sort of ran off, didn't he? At quite a pace. And left the unpaid bill for his tea behind, too. Of course. I must catch up with father at the telegraph office at once. And I'll run and call us a cab straight away. And then there was me thinking everyone would be clamoring to pay Mr. Sholmes' bill. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Where are we going now? Can I go back to, can I go back to the hospital? Maybe he's still there? This is the ward where Mr. Vigil was brought, apparently. To be frank, I'm a little worried about seeing him again. Ah, the lawyer. Hello again. Are you feeling better now, Mr. Vigil? Yes, thank you. Somewhat better. I'm so sorry to have caused you to... I mean, it was because of me. If I hadn't exposed your secret and forced you to remember things you'd obviously tried to forget. The prosecutor was here until a few moments ago, too. You dismissed him. Oh, Kazuma beat us to it. He said much the same as you. He was very apologetic. But the truth is, I brought all this upon myself. Please, don't think like that. Keeping it from Evie, my wife, all these years, I've carried such a sense of guilt. But that's not the worst of it. Over time, I obviously came to deceive myself as well. You mean about your dismissal? Looking back now, I'm beginning to think that perhaps Inspector Gregson didn't stumble across me by accident at all. I mean, he compensated me so generously for acting as his stand-in. He was clearly concerned for my well-being and doing what he could to help. So perhaps Gregson knew exactly what had become of Mr. Vigil all along then. I'm sure this is just desserts for 10 years of lies and deception, but... It wasn't me that helped the professor escape 10 years ago. It wasn't me. I swear it. I swear it's true. Oh, well, Mr. Vigil. I'm sure you'd rather not dredge up even more from your past at this time, but if possible, could you tell us exactly what really happened? I want to. I need to get all this off my chest. I just want someone to tell me what I should have done. Inspector Gregson was obviously engaged in a special operation of some sort. He was investigating something that even Scotland Yard couldn't know about. Details of the Reaper's marks, yes. It was when he had to carry out this investigation that I would take his identification and impersonate him. You'd pretend to be an inspector and carry out investigations on his behalf. Oh no, never. A common street peddler couldn't possibly carry out a proper police investigation. All I would do is go to the specified location and make a little hoo-ha. Just something to leave an impression, so everyone there would think a detective called Gregson was here. So, that's what you were doing on the day prior to the incident? Yes, he asked for me to make an appearance at the park on Lime Street for the Red-Headed League event. So as usual, I flashed my inspector's identification around and was very vocal about my presence. Then you were taken prisoner by those red-headed fraudsters. Yes. So, you would always make a point of showing Gregson's identification and generally being loud? That's what the inspector asked me to do, yes. Well, that's one way of becoming a legendary detective, I suppose. Not a good one, though. But as you know, I suffered this bruising around my neck at their hands. But the following day, they kept their word and released me. Not returning the inspector's identification to you, however. We had arranged to meet in Fresno Street in the Fresno Street room at 5 that day, so I could report back to the inspector. At the agreed time, that's when I heard the gunshot. It was at midnight on 17th June 10 years ago. That was the time scheduled for the execution. They don't... It's wild. Do they usually execute prisoners, like, at midnight? Do they let them have, like, a full day, or do they get, like, a night's rest for, like... Did they not get, like, a rest before they go? But the professor's execution never actually took place, did it? Or rather, the execution itself must have been used to effect the plan of escape. I hardly dare to imagine what a chilling plan it was. Barclay was renowned for being the highest security prison in the country. Everything that went in or out of the place was searched multiple times. But there was one notable exception. Or rather, one notable loophole, something that was never questioned. I have a feeling I know what that loophole was now. The coffins into which the bodies of the executed convicts were placed, correct? Yes. Once the coroner had confirmed the death of a condemned convict, the body was taken in its coffin for immediate burial in Lowgate Cemetery just behind the prison. The chief warder first had to sign the necessary papers. And after that, no member of staff was permitted to touch the coffin containing the body again. When executions took place, only the executioner and the coroner were permitted inside the chamber. I would wait in the adjacent room for word that the condemned convict was dead. On that occasion, once I had that confirmation, I went into the mortuary to find a lone coffin as usual. The procedure was that I would sign the paperwork having checked the coffin, then nail it shut. But for some reason that day, the coffin was already nailed shut. No. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assumed that my deputy must have checked the coffin and nailed it shut before I arrived. So, you mean the coffin contained... Yes, I can only imagine that having escaped his execution somehow, was alive inside the coffin. The coffin was then taken out through the main gates and deposited in Lowgate Cemetery. Presumably, there wouldn't have been enough air inside to breathe for long. So in the early hours following the burial, someone dug up the coffin again to set Genshin free. But in the end, he was fatally shot in the graveyard anyway. What on earth really happened in Lowgate Cemetery that night, I wonder? I'm afraid I really don't know. All I can say with certainty are two things. Asogi couldn't have possibly escaped that way without help from somebody working in the prison. And that somebody was not me. Obviously you knew the man. The professor, I mean. Genshin Asogi. Yes, I remember him well, in fact. Would you mind telling us what you know? Well, having been condemned to the death he was, any contact I had with the man was short, obviously. After that trial, which was carried out behind closed doors, attended only by elite members of the judiciary, they called for his execution to be carried out at the earliest possible opportunity. The outcome of the trial was set from the beginning, wasn't it? It was a time of delicate diplomacy when Britain and Japan were in the process of signing an important treaty. That meant that this potentially destabilizing case had to be dealt with swiftly and discreetly. The man had less than a week in total. As I was the chief warder, I oversaw his short stay in the cells until his final hour. I remember being struck deeply by his noble character and incredible resilience. What do you mean, exactly? He was a killer of many men, but he was always quiet and polite. He was a gentleman and a man of intellect. In fact, I couldn't bring myself to believe him what he'd done, so I asked him one day. Those 5 members of the aristocracy whose lives were taken, were you really responsible? I'm guilty of ending guilty of the unforgivable crime of ending another human's life, yes. The following day, the closed trial took place, and the verdict was no surprise. Guilty. That night, when he was brought back to his cell, I saw something. Something unusual. Something unusual? What? The last will and testament of Genshin Asogi. Really? Really? As I said, it was on the night following his trial, after he'd been found guilty. I was doing the rounds of the cells, and when I looked into Asogi's, I noticed he seemed to have a sheet of paper in his hand. Ah, his last will and testament then, presumably. As soon as he noticed me, he hurriedly shoved it behind his back. But why did you find that so unusual? Isn't it normal for a man to pen a will when he knows his death is nigh? Yes, that's true, but there were special conditions to Asogi's incarceration, you see. What sort of conditions? Well, even though he was held in a cell designed for condemned inmates, he was allowed to keep his personal effects with him, with one exception. Really? He was allowed his things? That is unusual, certainly. Of course, he'd been convicted of killing 5 members of the aristocracy. But at the same time, he was a guest in our country from the Empire of Japan. Powers that be were determined that his final days shouldn't be needlessly uncomfortable. And what was the exception you mentioned to the personal effects he was allowed? That's the point. He wasn't permitted to have any writing materials. Specifically, no pens or paper. So, he was prevented from leaving any written record of what had happened to him? Yes, that was the long and the short of it. I've no idea where he obtained that paper. Any writing materials would have been confiscated from him upon his incarceration. As I said, he hid the paper behind his back and then he pleaded with me. What did you just hide behind your back? Please, please turn a blind eye. This is my lifeline. What? You know it's against the rules. You're the only person who's seen if you just agree to keep quiet. Alright then, but what's on that paper? The last will and testament. This will is the only weapon I have left now. Yeah. How can a will be a weapon? So I decided to pretend I'd seen nothing, and I let him keep his will. But then later, it just seemed to vanish without trace. What? What do you mean, it vanished? It would seem that this isn't the end of the story of this mysterious will. Oh boy, what's this gonna... I was the only person who saw Sergei's will, but somehow it disappeared. It was after Sergei's execution, which was actually an elaborate jailbreak. The warders gathered up Sergei's possessions that were in the cell. They were all to be sent back to his family home in Japan, you see. Or Kazuma-sama. And you're saying it wasn't anywhere to be found among his personal effects? The will, I mean. That's right, though I didn't search through them myself. But Governor Caden was livid. He was screaming. It kinda had disappeared completely. That doesn't quite make sense though, does it? In what way? Well, we don't understood that only Mr. Vigil was aware of the will's existence. In which case, how did the prison governor know to look for it? Oh yes, you're right. I really don't know how he knew, but it certainly seemed as though he knew of the will's existence from the outset. Only he didn't refer to it as a will. What he said was... the Asogi Papers. The Asogi Papers. I really can't tell you anything of the subsequent events. Because, well, of what happened, your dismissal, and the way you blocked it all from your memory. I've forgotten all this until today. I don't suppose it's relevant to the case, though. Well, anyway, thank you very much for sharing it with us, Mr. Vigil. We're very grateful. What if Judge Jikoku is actually the professor, and he got away, and threw his friend under the bus? My wife Eva will be here shortly, so I do hope I don't appear rude, but... No, not at all. Thank you again. What will become of you now? Well, impersonating a police officer is a criminal offense, of course. I imagine that once I'm fully recovered, I shall be arrested. I'm so sorry. Don't be, please. This was all my undoing. I always knew that this day would come. Well, I wish you well. Goodbye, Mr. Vigil. Ah! Before you go, there's just one thing. Oh, yes? What is it? The Asogi Papers. I'd be very grateful if you'd made no mention of the things I've told you about them, presumably for some good reason. It's my understanding that their very existence is a closely guarded secret. If it become known that I remembered, well, it could be rather troublesome, I think. I understand. Some sort of will that Genshin Asogi penned just before his death, which the man himself claimed it was his last weapon. I wonder, perhaps it had something to do with his plan to escape. Is anyone who might know more about a document that Cosmo's father left behind? It would be Mr. Vigil's governor. Then we know precisely where he must go, back to Barclay Prison. You know, his disguise of Mr. Gossip really was quite masterful, wasn't it? I can't remember anything about it except for the floppy lip. I imagine not even his wife would have recognized him. Perhaps, but did he really have to take it quite so far? Now we can go back to the Gov. Hello, Governor? Governor? Trying to voice, is it? Now wait just a minute. Oh, back again, are you? Yes, hello. I've heard all about your investigations. I read the report just now. You found him, eh, Vigil? Yes. Yes, luckily. Well, anywho, the lobby doesn't work here no more, so your case is not to do with Barclay.
I wouldn't like you to get the wrong idea about that.
Of course, yes. Mr. Vigil stopped working here 10 years ago now, so... Yes, we've seen his dismissal notice, haven't we? He was given the
Kimmer, you can very well. So how about a wee handcuff biscuit?
Oh, they really are like little handcuffs. And hard as irons, too.
So, what's brought you down here today?
Well, there's something else we'd like to ask you about, actually.
Is that so?
We believe there might have been a document that disappeared from Genshin Asogi's cell. I think it's been called the Asogi Papers or something?
Did I no say Gregson's death is not to do with things that might have happened at Barclay? Leave the past in the past, laddie. Let's not foot around with irrelevant details.
Question changed completely. We're clearly onto something here. I know, right? I see where Phoenix gets it from.
That murderer's botched execution and the whole miserable escape. They were Barclay's darkest hour, a shocking embarrassment.
Because the convict had a collaborator on the prison staff, you mean?
Aye, for shame. The coroner who confirmed the death of the man after his execution, Courtney Scythe, and my chief warder at the time, Vigil, who was in charge of the whole affair.
But Mr. Vigil says he didn't know anything about it.
The rascal wouldn't say otherwise, eh? More handcuffs?
Oh, how could I say no? You can never have too much iron in your eye. When Mr. Vigil was handed his dismissal notice as a result of what happened, he was so despairing he jumped out of the office window, didn't he?
I do not like to say, but that's just Vigil trying to get out of it. Do you not think he would have jumped from the shock of his crimes being exposed, eh? I do.
You wouldn't say otherwise, though, would you?
Of course, I can't shun all the responsibility myself. I shouldn't have let him deceive me. Now wait just a con. I should have known you sell me out.
I'm just trying to get the voice down.
But I'm not even a food product. I sell security. Actually, there's barely anyone Kens knows what goes on at the time now. With Gregson having been murdered and Dr. Scythe forbidden from having any visitors.
No visitors? Someone obviously doesn't want her giving anything away. Well, we're not going home empty-handed.
No, I wouldn't dream of sending you packing with that. No, here, take a handcuff or two.
Oh, well, it would be rude to say no. You wouldn't want to become a Namek.
I suppose, if there's anyone who might still ken about what happened back then, it'd be that lass from the Forensic Division, Maria Gorey.
Maria Gorey?
Aye, Scythe's daughter. She didn't have no more, just the one. The way Burns followed in her footsteps, you didn't ever want to see her with a scalpel in her hand.
Ah. Oh, Mask Girl. Load. Mama, what is this? What is this? Where did she spring from? And did she just call the doctor Mama? It's Flarga's wife, Dr. Scythe's daughter, Maria Gorey. We could do with talking to her. So, she's Dr. Scythe's daughter, but her surname is Gorey?
Aye, there's some family history, I'm sure, but I didn't know the ins and outs of it. She grew up watching her mom working with the bodies of folk who died in strange circumstances, and decided to do the same with her own life. I kinda understand it myself.
Perhaps he was driven by deep respect for her mother.
Perhaps. Anywho, she was in charge of Gregson's autopsy, I believe.
Right, and the coroner responsible for this incomplete report was a child? Is she in the... I wonder if she's in the court record already. I'd like to see how old... she strikes me as a child. Okay, she's not in there. Oh, good. Gossip is still in the court record for some reason.
Someone told me once that the wee lassie always loved her mom's stories about cutting up bodies. There's even a rumor that she used to listen to the funeral march as a lullaby.
Well, then perhaps her mother might have told her about the autopsy from the case 10 years ago.
I'd say there's a fighting chance at least. After all, that was a life-changing case for all of us.
I really need to speak with Miss Gory herself about all this, I think. Well, thank you very much.
I'm no happy about any part of this. It took years for Londoners to finally forget the whole professor business. Can you not get up on this, laddie? Stop asking pointless questions.
I'm sorry, I don't like dredging up these painful memories for everyone.
Can you just stay away now? Leave me alone and do not come back here, eh? How'd you come to ken about that, laddie? There's no many folk here in the prison who've heard of those papers.
Well, I can't tell Mr. Vigil told me. I'm afraid our sources must remain confidential, sir.
Humph.
We've been led to believe that the papers are actually a last will and testament, is that right? Professors, or rather, Genshi Nasogi's.
Aye, that's right. You're well informed, Jimmy.
Oh, is that the end of the silent treatment? After the convict's execution, it mysteriously vanished from his cell, didn't it?
Avers, no. You're off at half cock there. I think you didn't quite get your facts straight. It was there in the cell, exactly where it should have been.
Oh, not what we heard elsewhere.
Let me just have a wee hook around in here. I'm sure I can find it. Aye, here you are. See?
The last will and testament of Genshi Nasogi, written with a calligraphy brush.
Of course, I cannot read a word of those Japanese squiggles, but in my mind it says something. It says he leaves all his worldly possessions to his son back in his homeland.
Yes, that's correct. That's the gist of it. So these are the Asogi papers?
Oh, aye, of course they are. Papers written by Asogi. No doubt about it. There's no mystery here, laddie. That's your lot.
Can we keep them?
After all, the stramash of that slayster of an execution, we sent the man's possession straight back to his clan in Japan, and that was the end of it. Except for this.
I think we have to make a record of this, Mr. Naruhodo, just in case.
One thing before you go on your way, Mr. Naruhodo.
Oh, yes?
Those papers are not to do with Gregson's death. I prefer it if you didn't make no mention of them outside this office, or rather... I wouldn't just prefer it. Consider it an order from the highest levels of our government.
I understand. Oh, he's gonna say it. Damn. Where am I supposed to find Miss Gory at the Lord Chief Justice's office? Oh, hello. 2nd November.
No arguments, Prosecutor Asogi. You will continue with the trial exactly as I instructed. Is that clear?
Perfectly. It's Kazuma-sama, defying Lord Strongheart by the look of it. He never did know when to back down.
On your way now, Asogi.
My lord. Kazuma. He left without saying a word. Yes?
What are you doing here?
Oh, I was just hoping to ask you a few questions if you wouldn't mind.
I wanted Van Zieks' trial concluded today. Prosecutor Asogi's unwelcome inquiries are going to make it take longer than necessary.
Unwelcome inquiries?
As a result, I'm losing even more precious time. Currently 2 hours, 55 minutes and 41 seconds. 42, 43...
Then we must resolve everything before the 3 hours have passed, Mr. Naruhodo. In a miraculous not even 5 minutes? Anyway, I can't let the man's obvious bad mood put me off. I need information. Does Professor Asogi believe that Lord Van Zieks is the Reaper?
I wouldn't know. It was 10 years ago in that faithful closed trial that Lord Van Zieks made a name for himself among the judiciary, but in the next trial he fought, he lost.
The event the ringleader of a criminal organization was acquitted, all thanks to the jurors being under duress. That's awful. The man's freedom was short-lived. He lasted just 3 days. Yes, let me see. He died in a rock slide at his place of work, I believe. How does a rock slide happen at your place of work? Correct. That was the inauguration of the Reaper of the Bailey. And people believed Lord Van Zieks was responsible? He was brought to trial himself, but it was shown to have been an accident. We must have had a solid alibi then. Nevertheless, the mysterious deaths continued. In total, 16 persons perished in unusual circumstances, ostensibly at the hand of the Reaper. That's a long run of coincidences. Well, the Reaper's true identity may very well be revealed by this trial. And the impact that revelation would have on the British public cannot be understated. That's why it's a closed trial? Precisely. This country hasn't seen a closed trial for 10 years. So the last one was the Professors? The trial of Genshin Asogi? Correct. Actually, we heard that originally you were going to prosecute that trial yourself, Lord Strongheart. Van Zieks entreated me to relinquish the prosecution to him, that he might avenge his brother's death. And here we are, 10 years later, with the son of the man Van Zieks has condemned now looking to avenge his father's death in the same way. They do say that what goes around comes around. However, it would seem that the young new prosecutor is harboring some ulterior motive as well. As by it? I like my organization to run smoothly in the exact manner that I prescribe. As with the giant clock in here, I won't tolerate a single cog being out of step with the others. Ah, so that's what all those gears are about in here. If the young man refuses to mesh with the other parts of my great machine, I will be forced to take steps. What do you mean? Not something with which you need to concern yourself. In any case, all your questions will be answered by tomorrow. Or tomorrow. The leader of a criminal organization is working at a mine? No, I shall have to ask you to excuse me. As of this moment, I've been delayed from attending my next meeting by precisely 3 hours. Oh my, that is a long time. And I hold you entirely responsible, even though we miraculously managed to fit everything in not even 5 minutes. I wonder if you might agree to us, talking with Prosecutor Asogi? Discussions between the defense and prosecution outside of the courtroom are generally frowned upon. However, I will make an exception in this case. Now go. You can find him in his office. Oh, thank you. Okay, thanks, Grandpa. Let's go see him at once, Mr. Naruhodo. That's my best friend in the world, but I'm really not at all sure how to talk. I know how to talk to him in the moment. Oh, it's Van Zieks' office right now, huh? Oh, look, it's a model of the room. So, this is the office of Prosecutor Asogi. Prosecutor Asogi now, is it? Kazuma-sama is doing so well for himself. Even though he's always forced to kneel on the floor Japanese style in that dark corner, it's his habit to sit Seiza style whenever he's working. Kazuma. I thought it wouldn't be long before you paid me a visit, Ryunosuke. I was right about what I said, wasn't I? Sorry? That you have all the makings of a great defense lawyer. Well, I always believed that you'd fulfill your dream of advocating in the British courts. I just never imagined for 1 second that it would be as a prosecutor. Seeing you stand in a foreign courtroom, so gallantly realizing your dream, Kazuma-sama, I'm truly happy for you. And I am truly thankful to you, Judicial Assistant Mikotoba. Ryunosuke, I always thought it would be fun for you and I to shake up the British legal system a little together. This isn't quite how I envisaged it, but I suppose it's just another twist of fate. I've learned a lot of things during my time in London, about how Suzata-san's father was himself a visiting student here once, along with Judge Shikoku, and about what happened with your father. Then you'll have no difficulty understanding why I had no choice, why I had to find a way to get to Britain as a visiting student myself. I want to hear it from you, Kazuma. As you wish, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Converse. It's getting on for a year now. That's what happened in the SS Buria. We were heading across the oceans from Japan to Great Britain when a bizarre series of coincidences, that should say series, not seriouses, led to those tragic events. Yeah, his titties, though. I thought I'd lost my best friend forever. I must have been unconscious for a long time. When I awoke, I was lying on a bed. It was a narrow little room. There was a posy of flowers by the pillow. It took me a little while to realize that I was in the cabin of a ship. I slipped out of the room and headed up onto the deck. Were you already suffering from amnesia at that point? Yes, I didn't know what had happened or where I was. There was just this voice in my head. You have something you have to do. Something no one else can know about. Go to Great Britain. Your task awaits you there. It was a calling I couldn't ignore. It compelled me relentlessly. Out on deck, I saw I was on a huge steamship and we were docked in a large port. It must have been Hong Kong. Yes, it must have been. Presumably just before they were due to carry your body off the ship. I had no idea of the situation, but I did have the feeling this was in some way my last chance. I concealed myself among the disembarking passengers and went ashore. Then I disappeared into the crowded streets of that foreign port city, so I could plan my onward journey to Great Britain. How do you do that? Just under a year ago, with all my past memories lost to me, I was left behind in Hong Kong. Everything was foreign to me. The sights, the sounds, the smells. My head reeled. I was truly at a loss. I realized now that I escaped as a dead man, with nothing but the clothes on my back. No money, of course. Oh, how terrifying for you. Luckily, though, I had 2 feathers in my cap. One being your knowledge of English, I suppose? That's right, and on the back of that, I was able to pick up some work as a deckhand on a cargo ship. Eventually, after calling accountant's ports, I finally arrived at Dover. That must have been some 3 months ago now. Your formidable tenacity of purpose showing itself again. I mean, the man had lost his memory and had literally nothing to his name, but he still managed to make his way to London on the opposite side of the world. Of course, I had no idea why I'd moved heaven and earth to get here at that point. So, how did you end up becoming Lord Van Zieks' apprentice, then? That can only be called an extraordinary stroke of luck, really. You see, I was stopped at the border because I had no papers. They took me straight to Scotland Yard, and by sheer coincidence, Lord Strongheart was there to attend a meeting. That's when the second feather in my cap came into play. Would that have been your knowledge of the law? Wow, he had amnesia, but he could remember the law. Okay. Yes, exactly. Lord Strongheart was curious about an Easterner with intimate knowledge of British law. He took me back with him to the Supreme Court and assigned me to the prosecutor's office. And then, 9 days ago, you finally got your memory back after the trial involving Drebber. Yes, I did. Ever since I first met you at Yume, you talked about your dream. Mark my words, Ryunosuke. I'll be chosen as a visiting student and make my way to Great Britain someday. Did you know the entire time about what happened to your father here? 16 years ago. When my father left on that exciting trip to Great Britain, I was just a boy. We took a photograph together the last day before his departure. It's my last memory of him. What I remember most about my father is his unswerving sense of justice. 6 years after he left, a gentleman called at our family home. He told me that Genshin, my father, had been taken ill in England and had passed away. It was Professor Mikotoba, your father, Susato-san. Oh my. Ever since then, the professor was very good to me. He even helped to fund my university education at Yume. I'll be forever in his debt. But nevertheless, I just couldn't bring myself to believe what he told me. Oh. Then one day, a letter arrived at our house from Britain. There was no indication of the sender, so I opened it assuming it was an old acquaintance of my father. What I read in that letter changed my entire life. What did it say? It said that my father had been a mass murderer, and the writer cursed the Asogi name. Oh no! As a result of that letter, I just found out what had been hidden from me all those years. Jesus, poor guy. Presumably the letter was sent from a relative of one of the victims. If whoever it was had been a member of the judiciary, he could have been present at the closed trial. The letter revealed that my father had been sentenced to death, executed for being a killer. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. I imagine the British government did its very best to silence whoever sent that letter. But someone who knew the truth and couldn't bear the resentment was always going to be a problem. But still, it could have been written by anyone. Why would you believe such a thing? There was a newspaper cutting included with the letter. It was the first I'd ever heard of the professor and his terrible killing spree. Well, what did my father have to say about the letter? I couldn't bring myself to show it to him. What? Why not? Because he deliberately concealed the truth from me by telling me my father was taken by a fatal illness. That seems to be a very popular line with him. That couldn't have been easy for him, and he'd done it out of consideration for my feelings. So instead, I showed the letter to Judge Jacobi. The other visiting student. He faltered for the brief moments and then laughed the letter off. But in that moment, I saw it on his face. He was undeniably shocked, shaken momentarily, before recovering his poise. A year later, my bereaved mother succumbed to the strain of grief, and she too passed away. That's when I made up my mind, that one day, without fail, I would cross the seas to Britain and seek the truth for myself. The truth about my father, Genshin Asogi. And I wouldn't let anyone stand in my way. Oh, Kazuma-sama. I'm gonna have to call this part Genshin's Impact. What we learned today in court turned things completely on their head. It was an impressive piece of lawyering, Ryunosuke Naruhodo. Lord Van Zieks isn't the Reaper, you know. I almost don't want to believe it myself, but it turns out that Inspector Gregson himself, the victim, was. It's clear the Inspector was behind the Reaper's activity all along. What? You mean you knew? The real question is who's been giving orders to the Inspector? Yes, Barak Van Zieks is the real Reaper. And I know that 10 years ago it was him who decided my father must be a mass murderer and sent him to his grave. No, he was merely seeing that justice was done as the law dictates. He's not to blame. Ultimately, it's people who condemn people. The law is just a tool that they use to do it. And when a man condemns another, he must take responsibility for his actions. Of course he must. But I know for certain that my father would never have taken another man's life. Kazuma. On the contrary, my father's life was taken by the Reaper. Oh dear. Oh man. Oh dear. Do I dare? Let's see what happens. Kazuma, what do you... Alright, so I don't think any of this is necessarily something that we should... Figured it would kick me out. Maybe I should look at the model. What the? It's a scale model of the crime... It's a scale model of the crime scene. Oh, yes, I realize that. Does the prosecution office make a model of the scene for every single case? Apparently so. Sometimes it helps to visualize things better and notice things you hadn't spotted before. Actually, the miniature notice board is my work. Be honest, you enjoyed making that. Lord Van Zieks. Yes, he's extremely particular about all that. The strict regime for everything, from the storage of the casks to the bottling of their contents. Gosh, he must be having a really tough time of it being his apprentice. Actually, no. Oh, he's so particular about it all, he refuses to let anybody else touch any of it. So it's been quite easy for me, in fact. Talk about weird. There's Lord Van Zieks' incredibly stylish desk. It's not my style, though. No, I noticed you've been working at the little table on the floor, kneeling down Seiza style. I thought it was some kind of punishment set up by Lord Van Zieks when I first saw it. I find it the most comfortable way to work. I can't do it. After a couple minutes sitting with my legs folded under me, they start to go tingly. Don't exaggerate, Ryunosuke. We both know you can't even manage them. Do you know who the man in the portrait is? Clint, isn't it? Why would I? What? But you're Lord Van Zieks' apprentice. Yes, an apprentice, not friend. And during the time I was suffering from amnesia, I didn't even notice that picture. Oh, really? I mean, it's not the smallest picture. I wouldn't have the first idea what the man decorates his office with. It's a nice office, though, I have to admit. Guess when... Oh, the bats are still here. Let's mess with them again. Ah, you disturbed the bats, didn't you? Fitting companions of Lord Van Zieks, wouldn't you say? Actually, I've seen the things flying in Lord Strongheart's office, too. Doves, I think. Welcome, my Tereda. Welcome. We both know you can't even Benjamin. It sounds like way too much like it's from a movie. That's... You're correct. How are you? Welcome. Perhaps you have to like birds to attain rank in the judiciary here. Although bats aren't birds, of course. How about a sparrow for you? What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing. Sorry, just thinking out loud. I have no confirmation of that. I have no idea if that's true or not. Casks floor to ceiling, just like the last time we were here. Hollowed barrels, I suppose. They're arranged according to vintage, flavor, and region. Every week, they're all taken out and put back in order. What? Every week? Lord Van Zieks can't seem to settle on the perfect way of arranging them, you see. Vintage, flavor, and region don't neatly coincide. That's the trouble. Gosh, being his apprentice must be a real challenge. Actually, no. No? He considers the task too important to entrust to anybody else, so he does it entirely on his own. Yeah, I know, Kumiko Suikane, I think is her name. She drew for Dojins. I think that's the thing. And she was the lead character designer for the original trilogy. So he's a barrel of laughs here and in court then. I would pay to see Lord Van Zieks trying to handle those stupid-ass barrels. Anything else I'm missing? No. Where am I going now? Yeah, he's 6'4" and can reach, but I don't know. I just want to see him like holding that. I guess he's pretty buff. He'd be fine. Nothing new to talk about, husband? Okay. Oh, I guess I do have to go back to Fresno Street. That would be pretty important. Wow, I keep forgetting that Milan wasn't tall. Oh, it's all the same. Watch trying to keep. Suppose it's policeman because the pocket watch was a gift from Scotland Yard. Seems there was much more to Inspector Gregson than we ever realized. He was clearly a brilliant man. The fish and chips that threw us off. I feel as though it ruined his image. I really don't think we should blame one of Britain's staple cuisines. Think about it. Imagine if it was Mr. Sholmes. How would you feel if instead of that old briar pipe that's always in his hand, Mr. Sholmes had a bag of chips? Rather disappointed, if I'm honest. Exactly. Oh, Jesus. This revolver. Just who does it belong to? Well, we know that's of the type issued to members of the police force and judiciary. But Gregson's own gun was found on his person. And of course, Lord Van Zieks has admitted to losing the firearm with which he was issued. Such absent-mindedness, not dissimilar to you, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm starting to think the cold, hard prosecutor and I could become friends after all. Then I wish you every success. Catches your eye as soon as you enter the room, doesn't it? Such a bright color. It certainly makes an impression, yes. They can't possibly commit any crimes, can they? I mean, redheads stand out like a sore thumb. I'm afraid with our jet black Japanese hair, we stand out almost as much here in London. I suppose that's true. You mustn't think of committing any crimes, Mr. Naruhodo. I wasn't. Using a candle as a timer device. Very ingenious, I must say. Yes, the culprit arranged it so that the firecracker would be set off at 5 o'clock and then left. The loud bang was heard at precisely the moment Lord Van Zieks arrived, yes. Only hadn't picked up that gun from the floor. Something you probably told yourself once upon a time, I imagine? Yes, I've learned that lesson by bitter experience. I would have turned to run a mile for sure. Which may not have done you any favors either. You just screwed them. There are details of this case stretching back over 10 years on this notice board. Yes, a history of Lord Van Zieks' defeats in court. I don't think that's an appropriate description. Although, when you consider everything on the board, it's certainly true that all these people had a background of dubious dealings. And in the end, of course, the board itself concealed the inspector's own death. Oh my. It really doesn't bear thinking about. The photograph of Mrs. Vigil. Realizing the identity of this lady was a very great clue to exposing Mr. Gossip's true identity. He obviously loves his wife very dearly, which is why he felt he couldn't tell her the truth. Transformation was incredible, wasn't it? Just from that big twisted lip. Yes, he went to extraordinary events to play the part of Hugh Boone convincingly. Although, it really didn't seem like it was much of an effort to me. Now you say it, I have to agree. Almost as if that was Mr. Vigil's true character. People really are very hard to fathom at times. I love these two. I'm gonna miss them once this game is over. I think I've seen everything here. Well, if it turns out that Gregson didn't actually die in here at all, where on earth could he have been killed? Well, one way or another, we must find out, for the inspector's sake. You know, you look awfully pale again today, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry. When I start thinking it all through, I conjure up some horrible images in my mind. Your imagination is the culprit here, then. Most certainly guilty. I don't really know where else to go. I think I might have to present something. Oh, maybe I could... Oh, maybe I can present... We have to find Maria Gori, right? Maybe I can show the autopsy report. Okay, that's not it. Waterloo again? I don't know, I doubt it. Can't even examine in here, that's sad. I haven't been here yet. Oh, this is what to do, any ideas, but like... okay, I'll read it, but I don't think I'm gonna get anything out of it. Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? It's rather unusual to find ourselves here in the middle of our visit. It's just occurred to me that I might have forgotten something when we left this morning. Please don't worry, as long as you continue to investigate thoroughly, you won't go far wrong. What? Oh, yes, of course. I must get back to work as soon as possible. I had a feeling, yep. Nothing was gonna come out of that. Let's see what we got here. I don't know why I did that. Did I go to Sholmes this week? It's been... Okay, yeah, it's just Iris. Okay. What's going on here? Oops. You could... Okay, I'll do it again. You couldn't read all these books even if you were reincarnated 6 times over as a bookworm. Would Lord Strongheart really have read all these? Thinking about it, Father's study is full of books that look as though they've never been read too. Oh, really? Peddlers of books are forever pushing their wares on him, you see. And I think he's just too kind-hearted to refuse them. There's a phrase for that in Britain. People would say that they saw him coming. It makes me wonder if perhaps the vast number of books on the shelves in here are a sign of Lord Strongheart's overwhelming kind-heartedness. I'm not sure you could afford to have a kind heart if you had to keep Lord Van Zieks in line, could you? What's that? It's just something I was hoping to ask your opinion about, that's all. It's a serious crime for the defense to attempt to extract information from the prosecution by illegal means. I think we have more of a defense and client relationship now, don't we? I think you know that this is worn by people in my country to show their defense lawyers, don't you? And I think you know that I believed you to be merely playing at lawyercraft initially. It would seem that your armband may actually imply some dormant talent after all. Lord Van Zeeks, do you mean? Let's hope you wake up soon. Yes, I was clearly daydreaming. I almost thought I got a compliment there. Oh, my husband, I love you. God, I want to, what, figure out what to do next. I'm lost. Did I miss something here? I don't think I would have. No, I don't think there's anything here. I know I'm supposed to find Maria Gori, but like I don't know how to do that. Oh, maybe if I show him the autopsy report, he'll know where to find her? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. If y'all have any hints or whatever for what I need to do, let me know. Am I overlooking something big? Maybe there's something I need to present. Ask Cosmo? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nasirema. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, maybe this came up in the trial, didn't it? As something a little dubious, I mean. The fact that no time of death was recorded on the Inspector Gregson's autopsy report. Thank you. Yes, there were some unexpected turns in the courtroom earlier. The suggestion you came up with certainly took everyone by surprise. The idea the victim died the previous day at some other location is quite something. Well, considering when the pocket watch had stopped and the scorch marks on the candle, it's certainly a distinct possibility. The evidence in the scene both point to it. To be honest, it bothered me too, so I paid a visit to the autopsy room earlier. The coroner responsible wasn't there, but I got a name. It's Dr. Gori. If it wouldn't trouble you, Kazuma-sama, we'd very much like to speak with the coroner too. What did I do? Oh, I clicked something on OBS and accidentally. Whoops, my bad. I thought I ended the stream or something. Whoops. Last thing, I want for anything to be brushed under the carpet. Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory is behind Lowgate Cemetery. Lowgate by Barclay Prison, you mean? Ah, you know it, do you? The prison where my father was incarcerated and robbed of his life. Kazuma-sama. Well, thank you. We'll pay a visit to the laboratory later today. Also, how are you doing, Nasireme? Good to see you. Ryunosuke, I want to thank you. What for? For this. You safeguarded the soul of the Asogi clan. Well, it's a famous sword that's been in your family for generations. My only slight regret is that I never got the chance to draw it before I returned it to you. Karama is said to have been forged by a master swordsmith during the Sengoku Warring States period. I come from a long lineage of warriors, many of whom were expert swordsmen. Well then, you're a chip off the old block, I'd say. This blade, Karama, is a symbol of the Asogi clan's honor and might. Apparently, one of my father's apprentices even took the blade's name for a surname. Really, Karama. Ah, ha, 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 ha. I see the implication there. So one of your father's apprentices is a Karma. 16 years ago, when my father was a visiting student here at London, he had the sword forever at his side, which is why it means so much to me that I have it by my side again, too. Now, too. Yeah, blessed to her. And that is all thanks to you. It was an honor. Now, I have preparations to make for tomorrow. Perhaps I said a little too much. Kazuma, you changed. No, Ryosuke, I haven't changed at all. It's you who's changed. I can completely understand your resentment of Lord Van Zeke's given what happened. But the fact is, those events in this case are, well, unrelated. Is that what you want to say? How can you be so sure? Oh, it's alright. It happens, Lustifer. Yeah, no. I was thinking, as soon as I saw the name of the sword was Karma, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna imply that somehow the Von Karmas are related in some way to the Asogi clan, and like, I was kind of right. Unrelated, is that what you want to say? How can you be so sure? What do you... No, never mind. That man is the Reaper, and it's for that reason that the inspector was killed. I'm going to prove as much in court tomorrow, by whatever means necessary. I can't let you do that, Kazuma. I know what you'll have to do as a lawyer, but I'm sure I don't need to tell you that I won't be taking any prisoners in the courtroom. I would expect nothing less. Until tomorrow, then, in the Old Bailey. Oh cool, the forensics laboratory. Is this the same one? Basement of St. Sinner's Hospital. Yep, it's the same one. Oh look, she's got little stuffed animals now. This place is a lot more pleasant. Kind of. They're all kind of terrifying. But it's a lot more pleasant than it was before. This place really is creepy, isn't it? Well, being a dead room, it's probably full of the spirits of the dissected. But actually, it's a rather pleasing set of roses in the air. Well, being a dead room, the coroner probably needs a bolt scent like that to mask the odor of death. Iris, don't you think we could change the subject? What was that? Sharpening her scalpels. She wasn't in that chair the whole time. Dr. Gory? What? That noise before. I was sharpening my tools. I'd be dead meat if I didn't keep a perfectly keen edge on them. Oh, yeah, no, Flarga loves this person too, Dr. Gory. Right. When following the collagen fibers, Thermos, an expertly sharpened... I can't do that voice. An expertly sharpened scalpel cuts like cheese. Would you like a demonstration? Oh, yes, please. I'd love to see. Then, I think you'll do nicely. Huh? No, I wouldn't do nicely at all. I mean, maybe some other time. Was that a tut? Well, we came here to ask questions, so I can't figure out a voice. I think I'm gonna do kind of what I did for her daughter, her mother, like kind of muted, but like maybe try to go younger. How old is she? She seems like she must be like 15. Don't look at her profile, but okay, cool, fine. Thank you for letting me know right before it was about to happen. Thank you. We have actually met before. I'm a lawyer, if you remember. No, not dead yet. What? So Mama said I wasn't to cut you open. She's so strict about things like that. Well, good. Dr. Scythe has some scruples at least. Oh dear, it looks like she's not interested in talking to us, for the time being anyway. For the time being? You mean until we die? I hope that's way of... Sorry, but I wasn't planning on dying anytime soon. Really, there's some less drastic way of making me listen. Oh, present the autopsy report, probably? Dr. Gorey, we actually came here to ask you about this. Okay, thank you. It was very good. Good? Sorry? His skin didn't snag my blade once, and very little mess. His joints dislocated easily, and his muscle tissue was a pleasure to work with. We can skip those details. But there is one thing about the report that's caught my attention. You don't seem to have recorded a time of death. Oh, there it is. Oh, she is adorable. Look at that. That's not my fault. Oh, that made me jump. Then please, tell us what happened. I love her design, actually. So, why does this autopsy report include the victim's time of death, then? It's really the most crucial detail. I was told not to write it. What? By whom? Mael Strongheart, the Lord Chief Justice. He came here. Lord Strongheart came? Now, surely you could have put a here in that sentence. Come on, now. Don't do that. He said that from the witness statements about the gunshot and the other evidence. It was obvious. The man clearly died at 5 PM on 1st November when the gunshot was heard. But that's not the time of death that you wrote on the report. You didn't write anything. Was there some reason you didn't include it? She just said. No, you didn't miss a typo. It's just an unfortunate way they wrote that sentence. Very lewd. Dr. Gorey. If you're hiding something under Lord Strongheart's instructions, then sooner or later you're gonna go the same way as your mother. Ryunosuke, Lord Strongheart came? Like, surely they could have included, they could have said Lord Strongheart came here, so I don't... I'm 12 years old. Give it here, then. What's she scribbling so furiously? There. You've written... What? What's she written? Tell us. Indeterminate. But... Indeterminate? What are we talking? 0 over 0? Indeterminate? The limit is indeterminate? Like, what's going on there? What do you mean by that? Why was the time of death indeterminate? When the specimen was brought in, it was still fresh, so the time of death could have easily coincided with when the gunshot was heard. But there was one small discrepancy. What discrepancy? There was some fried fish in the pocket of the specimen's overcoat, and that fish had started to rot. What? If the victim liked fried fish, he presumably liked to eat it before it went off. Well, yes. What do you... Oh, the fish means that, like... Oh, I get it. He died with fresh fish and then it was able to rot. It's possible that someone tried to manipulate the apparent time of death. Manipulate that. Is that even possible to do? Theoretically, if you were to chill the body in ice, you could delay the onset of putrefaction. Putrefaction. And if the overcoat wasn't on the body at the time, then only the fish would have started to rot. With today's science, it's not yet possible to determine if the body was chilled or not. Today's science is advanced enough to let you freeze a corpse, it seems. But surely, chill a corpse like that would require an enormous electrical refrigerator. I don't imagine many households in London are equipped with such a device. No, definitely not, but maybe in a factory, or some other special places. I don't recall seeing any factories or such like on Fresno Street, though. I wonder if the inspector's body had been chilled somehow. What the actual time of death might have been. Yeah, electricity is it's in its infancy, Blue Coin. I could say for sure. But at the most, it might have been a day earlier. In other words, it would corroborate your previous deduction, Mr. Naruto. That Inspector Gregson was killed a day before his body was discovered at a different location. Well, refrigeration doesn't have to mean... Refrigerator doesn't imply that it's electric. Hence why they specified an electric refrigerator. That wouldn't be too hard to do. It wouldn't be too hard to imagine. Did you inform Lord Strongheart of this possibility? You'd have to be able to keep it colder than a typical icebox, I think, so... He simply said there were no electrical refrigerators of that size in the vicinity. Oh yes, one other thing. It's something the Governor of Barclay Prison told us. He said that your mother, Dr. Scythe, was responsible for confirming the death of the professor after his execution. Professor? Apparently you always enjoyed listening to your mother's stories about her works, so... We were wondering if you might know something about what happened 10 years ago. That's not all Mama did. Mama did. Sorry? My Mama carried out the autopsy of Clint Van Zieks as well. What? Really? The brother of Lord Van Zieks, the professor's final victim. The idea of carrying out an autopsy on the member of the aristocracy was completely unthinkable back then. But the detective in charge of the investigation insisted, and it was miraculously authorized. That detective being Inspector Gregson, of course. Quite an accomplishment for one man. That autopsy provided the vital clue needed to arrest the killer. And Mama was there for that historic event. What does all this mean? You know, that amazing autopsy happened right here in this very room. The Professor and Clint Van Zieks. They both spent their final moments before their burial on that dissection table here. This lab, Mama's lab, was instrumental in some of the country's most important events. She really is proud of her mother. I wonder if you'd tell us more about exactly what happened back then, Dr. Gory? The Professor's execution was Mama's first big case. She had to be in attendance at Barclay Prison's execution chamber. Sign the certificate to confirm the convict's death. Mama is the best coroner in the world, you know. I was so proud of her. But the execution didn't actually take place. No, and worse still, Mama actually helped with the jailbreak. I didn't want to know. Oh dear, you found out recently, you mean? I believed in her, in Mama, but... Now I wonder if I'm starting down the same path as her. You mean because you omitted the time of death on this autopsy report? That's because Lord Strongheart forbade you from including it. Just like Mama, I'm sure she was coerced by somebody too. Yes, that's my feeling as well. There's no doubt that there were powerful forces at play 10 years ago. The execution couldn't have been staged without a lot of people at the prison knowing about it. Obviously, the prison governor must have been in on it as well. The big man with the little handcuffs, according to what he told us. He was tricked by the chief warder. He says he knew nothing about it. Suppose he said that, I'd say the same thing. Just who was behind that jailbreak all those years ago? You mentioned the autopsy of Clint Van Zieks. It was a time when carrying out autopsies of murder victims was very unusual. It's still not a practice that's observed in our country even now. It turned out that he was the professor's final victim, and when the autopsy was performed, Mama was present, although only as the secondary assistant. The person leading the procedure was called Dr. John H. Wilson. That's right, my daddy. There was one other person present, the primary assistant. He was a visiting student from the Far East. Wait, a visiting student? Must have been my father, Eugene Mikotoba. I had no idea Professor Mikotoba had been involved in something so important. Oh my god. The outcome of the historic autopsy was the discovery of a vital piece of evidence that led to the capture of the professor. So that's how they came to identify Genshin Asogi as the infamous mass murderer. Do you happen to know anything about that piece of evidence? Can you tell us more? Would you like to see the records for yourself? What? Would that be alright? What's the point of keeping records if people can't look at them? They're filed under V at the back of those cupboards, with the other records from the last decade. Thank you. Well, she is a lot more cooperative than her mother. Van Zeeks. That's strange. Oh. What, Mr. Naruhodo? They aren't here. There's nothing under Van Zeeks. There must be. Perhaps somebody took them away? No, no one's allowed to take documents related to the Professor case out of this room. But you're right, they're gone. Well, when was the last time somebody looked at them? Do you remember? It was... Oh yes, I remember now. It was 2 years ago. An consulting detective came one day saying that he'd like to see the records. No, you don't mean... Sherlock Sholmes was his... Oh my god. No. Sholmesy, what are you doing, babe? Deep down, I knew that was coming. Do you think he stole the records? Oh no, surely not. Iris, that can't be right, can it? Iris? Bruno. I hope you don't mind, but... What is it, Iris? I've just remembered something very important I have to do. I'm gonna have to leave you now. Oh, this is very sudden, Iris. Well, we'll come with you then. Oh no, there's no need. You and Bruno can take your time here. Bye for now then. Good luck. Wait a minute, little girl. Me? I remember now. You've been here before, haven't you? Have you, Iris? Yes, 2 years ago, when that detective came. You were with him, weren't you? You were a living specimen then, too. That's the way it usually works, yes. Was I? I really don't remember. Anyway, sorry, I must dash. Wait, Iris. I'll brew up a pot for you when I get home. What's the matter with her? She's behaving really strangely all of a sudden. Well, in that case, we won't keep you any longer either. It's been quite a while since I had any visitors. This was really fun. The next time you come, I'd prefer it if you were ready for dissection. I can't make any promises, sorry. I love her. It's a bit strange that records of Clint Van Zeeks' autopsy have disappeared, but I think we've asked all we came to ask. All we came to ask now. Oh, is Barack not here right now? Oh, well, Lord Chief, maybe LCJ has something? Nope. Great Waterloo? Nope. Resi? Oh, yep. The police are still busily investigating here then. But Gina's nowhere to be seen. Where is she? Yes, it has been blissfully quiet, hasn't it? Perhaps she's out investigating on her own, practicing what her boss taught her. Well, I expect she'll be back before too long. Shall we wait? Actually, that's... Sholmes' bag? Something different. Yeah, I see the bag. We could always use the time to investigate more thoroughly. Alright, well, glad we figured out what we're supposed to do. I'm surprised it took us this long to get to actually doing something here. This little trunk wasn't here before, was it? Oh, it appears to be made of metal. It must be very heavy. I wonder for whom it belongs. There's some initials on the outside. Look, TG. Oh, it's Gregson's. Let's ask one of the policemen if they know how it came to be here. Oi, what do you think you're doing? That's my trunk, that is. And hands off. Gina. Where were you hiding? I don't know. You leave something unattended for a few seconds, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry's got his greedy eyes on it. Just a while. Yes, Gina, but... Well, spit it out, Otto. Is it fair to say that you've only owned that trunk since this morning's trial? What? What were you trying to say? Come on, this trunk goes with me everywhere. Always has. Where have you been the last year? Trying not to incur your wrath, mainly. Oh, Gina, it's so good to see you. I've missed you. You should hear them talking at the yard now. They should be ashamed of themselves. They're saying that it was the boss who killed all them blooders. Ah, you mean the whole Reaper thing? Yeah. Apparently, the boss was investigating stuff that no one else at the yard knew nothing about. Oh, it's stuff to do with all them criminals what got off scot-free. Yep, the one prosecuted by Lord Van Zieks who used bribery and corruption to evade conviction. Well then, obviously, it was that bloomin' Reaper giving the orders, weren't it? But why would people be suspecting Inspector Gregson of being involved in the killings? There was a notebook in his office. Oh no, this doesn't sound good. It had details about all the crimes that have been pegged as the Reaper's work. What? No. Did you see it, Gina? Did you see that notebook? It wouldn't flaming let me, because I'm just an apprentice, apparently. But it was me who found it, and he was my boss. That's right. I was pretty miffed about it, so sneaked a peek at what it said anyway. Oh, that's our Gina. I love Gina. So, you managed to see what was written in Gregson's secret notebook anyway, did you? Way I see it, it's my right to read what he wrote. And what had he written, Gina? I don't know about all that. Dates, times, places, names, and a whole long list of them. All details about the blooders supposed to have been done in by the Reaper. But there could be an explanation for that. Perhaps it was a record of the Inspector's investigation into the Reaper's activities. Exactly, that's what I said. That's the first thing you'd think, right? As it happens, it was full of names I recognized anyway. Well, the Reaper's targets were almost exclusively known leaders of the London's criminal underworld. Well, yeah, but there was one name right at the end that was a bit odd. At the end of the list, you mean? Pretty sure the date against it was 31st October. Oh, the day before the Inspector was found dead! Halloween. So, what was the odd name? It weren't the name I've ever seen before. It was something like, nah, it's no good. I can't remember it. I don't think it was an English name, put it that way. Oh dear, what a pity. There was something else too. I don't know if it matters, but the same name can come up over and over. Shin, it was. Don't suppose it means anything, but... Oh lord, did you say Shin? Eh? What does it mean something? Lord Van Zieks knew the name too. He mentioned her as well. The woman who actually did the deeds. And now we find out her name appeared in Gregson's secret notebook. We haven't seen you for a little while, have we, Gina? It's been a day. Well, of course not. I've been busy, ain't I? Investigating and all that. The lads at the yard are trying to trace the boss's movements the day before it happened. The day before? That would be the undercover investigation into the Red-Headed League, then. Only the boss didn't go, did he? You found some cove what was pretending to be him, didn't you, Otto? Yes, it was Mr. Vigil who actually went to the park on Lime Street that day, posing as Gregson. Well, anyway, you ain't the only one turning stuff up. I've got my own ways of getting results. When me and my partner get here together, there's nothing we can't track down. Oh, little Toby, he's such a faithful friend. So, have you tracked anything down then? What do you think, eh? Of course we have. Can't tell you though. Police business, isn't it? Anyway, the point is, if you lot ever need any help, you know what to turn to, right? Me and Nell around here. I love Toby. Right, because he looks oh so hellish, honest. The Hellhound. Gina, about your Hellhound there. Chief Inspector Toby, you mean? He's the pride of the force, he is. In Japanese, police dog means something quite different, and not altogether nice to those involved in crime. But here in Britain, it's a wonderful compliment, it seems, for canine at least. It should be, after all, in the Great Exhibition case of the other day. It was Toby here who managed to locate Drebber's workshop. Maybe it's time for another demonstration of what this super doll can do, eh? We have the scent of something the Chief Inspector would catch the scent. Well, I was thinking for the pocket watch, I think, would be the biggest thing.
Take that!
Well, Chief Inspector Toby even has... He might be a little too keen, don't you think? Aww. Chief Inspector made short work of Gina there. Ah, look what he's gone to. Oh my, that trunk clearly has a very strong scent. Of Inspector Gregson. That's what TG stands for. In other words, it must have belonged to him. Gina? Alright, it's fair cop, I suppose. And you nearly got away with it, too. You always talk so proudly of Chief Inspector Toby's nose and what can it achieve. Did it not cross your mind that he might identify something that was right next to us? Yeah, that was a bit of a bloomer, wasn't it? That's enough bit now, Gina. Eh? I think it's time you told us the truth about that trunk. It weren't like that. It just weren't. What are you talking about? I know what's going through that head of yours, but that ain't what happened. Alright then, so what did happen? Well, like I said before, we were trying to trace the boss's movements. So I let Toby air up a whiff of the boss's overcoat. And as soon as I'd done that, he went up like a shot. Straight to that sandwich. To a sandwich? Not to a bag of chips? Mr. Naruhodo. I believe Gina means the witness. Oh, I forgot about that sandwich. I still call him Beppo. Yeah, I ate it between them wooden boards of his. The boss's trunk. You mean when they heard the sound like a gunshot and all piled in here? Exactly. He nabbed it from the scene. Goodness. And Chief Inspector gave that sandwich a good grilling, and you know what he said? I thought they might have fetched a good price, and the chap won't be needing it anymore, so... But that's all I did, and... Would you Adam and Eve at the cheek of it, huh? Stealing the dead boss's stuff to flog. Miss Venus wasn't the only one to meddle at the scene of the crime then. How could they? Well, anyway, that's how it happened. That's a pretty decent trunk, so I figured I might as well make use of it. Is there something wrong with that, eh? Well, maybe you and Mr. Sandwich should try to find the answer to that question together. I think perhaps that trunk should be turned over to the police, don't you? What are you on about? I am the police. Gina, if you wouldn't mind, we maybe examine it. Yeah, alright then. Do what you want with it. Thank you. We shall make a detailed record of our examination of the evidence. What's the matter with Toby? Why is he acting so aggressively towards me all of a sudden? Mr. Naruhodo, be careful. It must be the trunk. Aww. Why this song? He's not dead. Toby, oi, what are you doing? You're gonna lick his face off. Mr. Naruhodo! Mr. Naruhodo! Why this song? Gina, quickly, hail a carriage! Eh? Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, are you alright? This is Ato. Ah, conscious again at last. A blessed relief, my dear fellow. After all, to drop dead after a moderate licking by a small terrier. Most unseemly. What is or isn't seemly is irrelevant here, Mr. Sholmes. I'm so glad there's no lasting damage. How are you feeling? I'm fine, thank you. Did you bring me back here? Ah, what's this on my head? A bandage? Sadly, we had no ice, so that's a compress of sugar water. Sugar water? Don't worry, Mr. Naruhodo. It's a first aid treatment that my father taught me. Oh, thank you. So, let us take tea when you're feeling up to it. But of course, there's no sugar in the patient's cup. Ugh, the bump on my head is throbbing sweetly enough, don't worry. Whenever you feel ready, then. Alright, let's go talk to Sholmy. We got a lot to talk about with you, my dear fellow. Thank you for your concern, Mr. Sholmes. My dear fellow, think nothing of it. I must say I was quite startled when I heard that you'd been attacked by a dog. For a moment, I feared the infamous murder of so many had come back from the dead. You mean the professor? Unfortunately, I see your prized throat is unscathed. That stiff, turned-up collar of yours obviously afforded some welcome protection. Was I that close to death? So I guess the Hound of the Baskervilles at this point is about the Professor case, and that's why they can't publish it. All I really remember is the dog licking my face over and over and over again. Well, if you wish to avoid such troubles in the future, a little mustard spread on the cheeks should do the trick. Oh boy, don't tell me what to spread on my cheeks, dear. I should think that would balance the sweetness of your bandage rather splendidly. That's all? That's all we're gonna talk about? We have to talk about it. Come on.
Her mit dem Schwarzbiergebot, brodelnd wie ein Feuerberg, den Schlund es mir verbrannt, ach Hopf.
What on earth is going on in here? Am I having a bad dream? Ah, no, it's an old German folk song. Rather a fine rendition, I think. It's the least of my concerns. Iris? Iris, what's the matter? Who's it? Is that Professor Mikotova? Hi, Iris. Is she even listening? Excuse me, sir, I do apologize for troubling you while you're singing so merrily, but would you be kind enough to explain the situation? That worked. Crooning gentleman and a mute young girl. A rather tantalizing juxtaposition. What is happening? And one that appears to have incited the gods of deduction to... Oh, God. Ah, Mr. Sholmes, do you mean... The strains of reasoning within me are playing now as a delightful duet. One melody sings of a reunion full of nostalgia. Of course, the other is a morose theme about the great secret you're trying so desperately to conceal, Iris. He's turned as white as a sheet. So as usual, you've instantly seen to the very heart of the matter. I don't know about it, as usual. And by the time my own brief performance is over, I feel sure this gentleman's song will reach its finale. So then, to music land where all is sweetness and delicacy and harmony. Hey, they are the logic and reasoning spectacular. I shall destroy them with facts and logic. I like how he's not wearing the hat this time, because he wasn't wearing it in the... Firstly, we consider the gentleman's nationality. Clearly he's a German with no grasp of the English language, as evidenced by the Germanic song he sings, and his apparent inability to understand when asked to desist. So why is the man here at all? And in such apparently high spirits? Isn't that just Professor Mikotova? The answer, of course, Iris, is clearly known to you. Indeed, we only need to follow the gaze of his bright young eyes to unravel that particular part of this mystery. The reason for the man's oddly irritating wobbling is revealed by the herbal tea. You obviously offered our German guest a cup of your latest herbal blend. The tea's delectable flavor has made the man's spirits soar, and resulted in this joyful ditty tumbling incessantly from his lips. I eagerly await sampling the flavor myself, that I may join the fellow in his state of elation. So now to the next question. Who exactly is this gentleman availing himself so thoroughly of the settee? As it happens, a number of years ago now, a certain gentleman of German origin engaged in my services in solving a particularly delicate case. He required the retrieval of letters once sent to an acquaintance that might have proved problematic. In order to conceal his noble identity, he also arrived at my office in a mask. The gentleman's name was William Gottschalk Sigismund von Ormstein. No, not Gotts. The King of Germany. If my memory serves, the mask worn by this gentleman is identical. Yes, there can be no question this man belongs to the King of Germany. It would appear that His Majesty remembers the fine service I afforded him, and has decided to show his face again, mask and all, in order to express his gratitude. I don't want to think about Sir William Gottschalk von Ormstein, Sigismund von Ormstein again. A well-mannered monarch indeed, wouldn't you agree, dear fellow? So the identity of this masked visitor is in fact my former client, the King of Germany. Indeed, his son is currently in London as well, enjoying the wonders of the Great Exhibition. Huh? No way. These are so funny. Which leaves us with one remaining imponderable. Yes, you, young Iris. But your inexplicable silence is unable to hide the truth. Yes, the reason for your muteness is concealed inside that knapsack. £5 note, I believe. I must say, as your compatriot, I'm deeply saddened. It would appear that you've allowed yourself to be bribed into silence by His Royal Highness, earning yourself some spending money in exchange for keeping quiet about the King's secret. And now, the final piece of the puzzle. What is this secret you strive to hide with your silence, Iris? Ah yes, we need only follow that brief, involuntary twitch of the eyes to find the answer. You were attempting to escort with that coffee cup. My favorite coffee cup, in fact. Should I say, the handle of my favorite coffee cup? It appears that his high-spiritedness broke it in the midst of his hijinks. Which leads us to the sad truth. My favorite coffee cup has been broken by the King of Germany, and Iris, you tried to conceal it from— what the hell? What? I shall have a bill sent to the governmental channels of the German royal family for its replacement. Oh dear lord. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this painful puzzle.
Mit dem Schwarzbiergebot Modern Wien Feuerberg.
With your silence as well, the fellow jovial's warbling rather rings in the ears, doesn't it? Mr. Sholmes, I must ask something, something rather does trouble me. Pray, Miss Usato, do tell. His Royal Highness doesn't appear to have moved a muscle since we arrived. And you haven't said a word either, Iris. If Mr. Sholmes has it all right, you may as well own up to it now. Your reasoning isn't entirely without substance, I must admit. And one other thing, Mr. Sholmes. Yet another grievance, Mr. Naruhodo? Surely not. Well, I actually read the story of that case recently, the one you were just describing. According to that, at least, it wasn't the King of Germany, it was the King of Bohemia. Goodness, was it? Yes, that's quite true. Master Gotz, the prince, testified to that in court. In his words, I have come to see the great exhibition hall all the way from my home in Bohemia. I would ask you to keep that minor error to yourselves. It could easily become quite a scandal. I believe, Mr. Naruhodo, our turn now to make some corrections to a number of minor errors that may have slipped in. Yes, even Mr. Sholmes is willing to admit that he might be slightly wide of the mark this time, even though it's clear that Iris is definitely hiding something. We need to find out the truth behind this mysterious scene. But one truth is incontrovertible. My favorite coffee cup is no more. So, shall we embark again on a joint presentation of Herlock Sholmes' logic and reasoning spectacular? Course correction! King of Germany. So what, some mix of herbs that gives you the urge to sing? Goodness, I should like to try some. I'd like to hear you singing, but this man, just how long does he intend to keep up with that tune, do you suppose? As I said, he's been stock still the entire time, and if you look closely, his lips aren't moving either. I'm not sure what's actually responsible for the spirited singing, but I suspect the answer lies at the end of Iris' gaze. The phonograph. Or the gramophone.
Take that!
The reason for the man's mildly irritating warbling is revealed by the gramophone. Indeed, but no well-bred gentleman would break into an obscure folk song when making a social call. In other words, this gentleman isn't singing at all. In fact, it appears the fellow is unconscious. Ah, the music seems to have stopped now. I ask you, Mr. Naruhodo, yes? Why would I have purchased a recording of that gibberish? How should I know? Well, never mind. Who exactly is this gentleman? Although we recently established it was actually the King of Bohemia, it seems Mr. Sholmes intends to persist with his Germany theory for some reason. Come to think of it, the young prince who was wearing a mask as well, wasn't he? Master Gotz, the boy who even had in tears? Don't remind me. Or anyone else. You suppose all members of the aristocracy of mainland Europe wear masks? I'm sure they do. Well, probably anyway. The point is that mask doesn't belong to any king. No, that's right, as we well know, because we can identify the true owner of this mask. Kazuma, it's Kazuma's mask. Girl, fix your hair. Yes, there can be no question. That mask belongs to Kazuma Asogi. In other words, my memory is sublimely unreliable. Only you could try to make that sound positive. Kazuma's mask had been languishing on his metal chest for several days, though it doesn't explain why the gentleman is wearing it now. But it is now a simple matter to determine our guest's true identity. After all, the gentleman is unconscious. We need only excuse ourselves in advance. Gently lift the mask and peer beneath it. It's Professor Migotov. Ah. I don't believe it. I do. Ah. Father. I'm afraid, Miss Usato, you must be mistaken. Nope. I think not, Mr. Sholmes. Then it would appear our logic and reasoning has once again revealed the truth. This mysterious visitor is my unconscious father, Eugene Mikotoba. Logic and reasoning are just looking and saying. No, what a good picture. Coffee cup. Yes, you, young Iris. Oh, that's a £5 note poking out of Iris's knapsack, is it? Oh dear, I can't be sure. Most of the money that we encounter is in coin form. I know. Not even sure we've seen any banknotes here in Britain at all, have we? But anyway, Father never would have paid money for Iris's silence. He certainly seems like the silent type himself, though, judging by his present state. Must be some other reason for Iris's silence, I suppose. That's what Iris is trying so hard not to give away with her eyes. Something entirely different. Was the only other thing in the room. Yes, the reason for your mutants is concealed inside the metal chest. And excellent observation. Upon closer inspection, there's something different about the chest's appearance. It's kept locked at all times, yet now the catch is open. Evidently, this has something to do with your refusal to speak, Iris. A simple enough matter to incite you to speak, I'm sure. I merely need to open this chest. Yeah, ooh, that ass. Look at that. Look at that ass. Round. Sorry, I love everybody. Here we go. No! Harley, don't! Ooh, right now. Ooh. Ooh, Mr. Schultz! He's dead. Never. Oh, Hurley, I told you not to open it. So you found your voice now. In other words, what just happened clearly reveals the truth here. Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is... This is somewhat different to the usual dance of deduction you perform with Mr. Schultz, isn't it? Well, he's left me alone on the ballroom floor, so I'm gonna have to dance this next part solo. And anyway, I need to get to the bottom of this for my own peace of mind. Now then, Iris isn't usually the silent type, so... You mean you don't actually know the answer to that yet, despite that knowing point of the finger before? Miss Usato, sometimes a man needs to point his finger first and think later. Oh, well, if you say so. I think we better examine Iris more closely and rescue the situation.
Take that!
Yes, the real reason for your silence until now is that key behind your back. When Mr. Schultz was thrown into the air before... Yeah, show me again. Oh, man. Just before you try to stop him, you slip something out of your mouth. That something is the key now in your hands. No doubt, the key to the chest. You're so clever, Reno. So now it becomes clear. Thanks to Mr. Sholmes' graphic demonstration, we can well imagine what happened here. But Professor Mikotoba also opened that metal chest only to be punched into the air and land sprawled on the settee. But wait, that doesn't explain all the facts. What about the stylish scarf and the cup of tea? And above all, why would he be wearing Cosmo-sama's mask? But about those curious details, I can think of only one explanation. Clearly, the unbelievable miracle took place in this room. Isn't that right, Iris? Consider how the room was arranged before this whole painful experience took place. When Professor Mikotoba opened the chest, he was completely unaware of what awaited him inside. The mask was flung into the air just as he was, only to land neatly on his face when it fell back down. And the teacup's journey through the air ended when it caught on the unconscious professor's finger. You mean to say that the stylish car is actually just a tablecloth? This is the great detective's office, after all. Place of miraculous deductions. Would you expect anything less? Oh, I love this game. Yes, you're right. It's happened exactly as you said. It would have all fell in like the same general direction, yeah. But thus concludes Fionosuke Naruhodo's great deduction of this punchy puzzle. So then, why don't I make us a fresh pot of tea for us all?
Objection!
You can't object, you're not a lawyer. An admirable performance, Mr. Naruhodo. But in the final act of the show there, you rather missed something of everything of importance. Mr. Sholmes. If you would cast your mind back to my earlier deduction. Iris, you're clearly hiding a great secret. Ah, she is, from the look on her face. Mr. Sholmes must be right. Whatever that great secret is, the cat isn't out of the bag yet. So I put it to you again. You were attempting to abscond with that coffee cup. Really is a shame of Mr. Sholmes' cup. This had been smashed when Professor Mikotoba opened the chest. Oh dear, so many things seem to have broken here. And now that the deduction has taken a different direction, Iris doesn't seem to be trying to hide the broken cup anymore. In other words, her great secret is something else. Yep, observational skills. The papers.
Take that!
Oh, the music didn't stop, but that's not it. Maybe we need to... Oh, we probably need to examine it. The only thing else on our... Only other thing on our person. Alright, sure. Oh, the case file.
Take that!
You could easily open something with something on it if you open it gently enough, and then the metal fist would just open it all the way. You are attempting Osan with that case file. Iris, as you know very well, nothing escapes the attention of a great detective. Oh no! We visited Scotland Yard's autopsy laboratory earlier today, and Dr. Gorey informed us that the autopsy report of Clint Van Zieks had gone missing. Clint Van Zieks. Yes, I do seem to recall. That some years ago I asked to see the report in question. You were with me, weren't you, Iris? I. You mean it was you, Iris? So those papers you have there are... I'm sorry. Forgive me! Oh, poor baby. What happened, Iris? Elementary. In truth, I would like to have thought I could have predicted the booby-trap chest, but it caught me completely off guard. I was very nearly the late consulting detective Herlock Sholmes. Ugh, I'm sorry, Hurley. So you mean the autopsy report really is Yes, I took it from the lab, even though I knew it was very important. Was there something in it that troubled you, Iris? Not exactly something that troubled me. Something that I've been looking for. When I saw this report, I saw the writing on it. I knew it was Daddy's. The writing? Your father's writing? What do you really mean? Iris, it must be something that's hard for her to talk about. Forgive me for interrupting, my dear fellows. Mr. Sholmes, what is it? You feel as though the full unconscious gentleman on the settee has been somewhat forgotten. Ah, the father! Perhaps we should find our guest somewhere more peaceful to rest. Mr. Naruhodo, yes? Would you be so kind as to lend him your bed? We must do our very best to make him comfortable, I feel. Oh, yes, of course. I'll help you carry him up. So will I. No, I can manage alone, thank you. You have tea to enjoy. We wouldn't want Iris's brood to stew. Graceful pest valley. Because there's no better way to make a professor comfortable than dragging upstairs like a trunk. Oh god, Sholmes. I wonder, perhaps that was deliberate. Maybe Mr. Sholmes is making himself scarce to give Iris the chance to talk more freely. We must use this opportunity to talk with Iris. And find out what's going on. Would you like to tell us about, Iris, about your father? I'm sure I told you before, didn't I? That Daddy used to be Hurley's partner. Yes, and that notes about all the cases they solved together are kept inside that metal chest. That's right, Hurley told me, you see. He said that Daddy's somewhere far away now, so we can't meet. That's one way of describing it. Then, when I secretly unlocked the chest and read through the papers inside, I started to build up a picture in my head of what Daddy must be like. Well, that's only natural. You're just like any other girl of your age. I read that Daddy was a professor of medical science, so I studied and took my degree too. Well, that's only natural, I suppose. In that respect, you're not quite like any other girl of your age, though. But there was one thing I could never find out. Daddy's name. Ah, his name wasn't anywhere on any of the notes that he'd made about his work with Hurley. Then one day... That's what happened, isn't it? When you saw this autopsy report, you finally managed to work it out. Is that right? Yes. So it was the handwriting on the report that caught her eye. I see. I saw the writing on that report. I could hardly believe it. I know that handwriting, I thought to myself. Because it was the same writing as you'd seen on your father's case notes? Exactly. I was desperate to compare the two properly. I needed to see them side by side. I asked the doctor in the laboratory, but I was told I couldn't take the report away. And even worse, told that I was the first and last time we'd even be allowed to look at it there. We decided to steal it. When I compared the autopsy report with the case notes I had here, there was no doubt. The handwriting was exactly the same. It was Daddy's. And the signature of the coroner at the bottom of the autopsy report read Dr. John H. Wilson. So that's how I finally found out. I learnt Daddy's name at last. See. Ever since then, I've called myself Iris Wilson. That's also when I had the brilliant idea of writing stories about Daddy's exciting times with Hurley. I decided there and then I'd write the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. Oh, Iris, I had no idea the stories had quite such a deep personal significance to you. I kind of did. It was her dad. Well, I mean, like, I feel like they were just very personal to her. Maybe not. Maybe felt like that was fairly obvious. I can see why the autopsy report was so important to her now. And why she was prepared to break the law to get her hands on it. I must apologize, Iris. This is really all my fault. Hurley? I made a promise, you see, that until the time was right, I'd keep the details about your father a secret. I know, I've been very naughty. I'll take the autopsy report back to Dr. Gore and apologize, I promise. Yes, we'll go together, I think. Then, let me look after it for you until we get there. I must go and water my herbs, I think. I'll see you all later. Poor Iris, she must be feeling awful. I know Mr. Sholmes is here for her, but still. Ah! What? How? What's the meaning of this, Mr. Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes? Oh dear me. So, you've noticed, I see. But that would mean... What on earth's the matter, Miss Susato? You've turned as white as a sheet. It's this autopsy report, Mr. Naruhodo, the one from 10 years ago. Writing. Isn't Dr. Wilson's at all. Huh? What do you mean? Because I know this writing it's her father. This writing is my father's. What? Professor Mikotoba's? Indeed, it's true. And now you know. My dear fellows. No, I don't know anything. What on earth does all this mean, Mr. Sholmes? Because the idea that's slowly forming in my mind, it's just too extraordinary to believe. Please, you have to explain. So, this autopsy report was actually penned by Professor Mikotoba, then? That makes no sense. It's not possible, surely. Not possible, my dear fellow. Pray, take a deep breath and think again. Yes, you're right. In some ways, it actually makes a great deal of sense. It does. 10 years ago was when Father returned to Japan after his extended study tour in Britain. And prior to his return, where was Dr. Mikotoba engaged? Ah, of course. He was an assistant in Dr. Wilson's laboratory, learning about forensic science. And as an assistant, he would have aided with dissection work, making detailed notes, which would be assembled into the full autopsy report. Once the work was complete, the head coroner would check the contents and put his signature on the document. In other words, the only writing of Dr. Wilson's in the report would be his signature at the end. So Iris got the wrong end of the stick, you mean? She saw that, assumed the whole report had been written by Dr. John H. Wilson. Which is very understandable, of course. What a complicated situation. Thinking about it, most of what we know about you, Mr. Sholmes, comes from the published stories of your exploits. Yes, The Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, written by Iris. And we really have no way of knowing what's fact and what's fiction. It's troubling for you, my dear fellow, I'm sure. So what about the supposed partner of yours? Did he really exist or not? Ah, you've come straight to the point, I see. And please come straight to the answer. I believe Iris explained it in one of her installments. He was a trusted comrade and the only person I could have truly called a friend. And did this partner of yours truly make a record of all your cases? Are his notes really stored inside that metal chest? Well, that means that all of the handwriting, all the case notes were written by Professor Mikotoba. Absolutely, my dear madam, absolutely. Which means his partner was... what? We rarely meet. You see, he lives on the other side of the world. But if this autopsy report and all the records of records of all your old cases were penned by the same hand, Professor Mikotoba was Sholmes' partner, and if the autopsy report was written, though not signed, by your famous partner, then there would only be one logical conclusion. Pray, impress me. Your partner would have to be Eugene Mikotoba. In other words, Miss Susato's father. Upon my word, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? You are coming along wonderfully. You've hit upon the method at last. You finally grasped the art of deduction. You mean to say... Allow me to introduce you to my great friend and partner, Mikotoba. Professor Mikotoba? No way. What the hell is this game? I'm done. This is insanity. Does this mean that you're the real Dr. Wilson? No, my dear. I'm still my old self, Eugene Mikotoba, your father. Oh, of course. This is obviously too much for Susato-san to take in. I must say, though, how my old friend has attained worldwide celebrity as a great mystery solver is the greatest mystery of all. I still remember the first time I met... What's the age difference there? Why do I keep hitting that button? He's 43. He's 34, okay. Still remember the first time we met. Ah, pray remind me. When was it again, Mikotoba? 16 years ago, Sholmes. Ah yes, quite. 16 years ago. I just arrived from Japan with Seishiro and Genshin. I was in search of lodgings close to the hospital, some comfortable rooms at a reasonable price. The rents are devilishly high in that particular area. That's right, so I decided I needed someone to share lodgings and the expense, and was fortunate enough to be introduced to Mr. Sholmes, who found himself in a similar situation. I was a callow fellow back then, a mere shadow of the great detective you see before you now. What the fuck, man? What is this? I was working at the hospital's chemical laboratory at the time, indulging my curiosities for little gain. And the situation of our cohabitation led to us pursuing cases together, you see. Hard to believe it was a mere 6 years. We had a great many adventures. But in the last year of Mikotoba's stay in Britain, that most infamous of cases presented itself. The case with which you've become rather familiar yourselves, Professor Killings. After the trial, Seishiro and I were summoned back home. Hardly surprising, given the circumstances. So there you have it. And as you know, all the details recorded by my trusty chronicler remain in that metal chest. This is just amazing. Professor Mikotoba really is Mr. Sholmes' famous partner. Father. Goodness, my dear, what a cutting look. As your daughter, I'm very proud to learn that you were the great detective's great partner. But nevertheless, there's another mystery that I really must ask you to explain now.
And that is?
You know very well what that is. The unresolved matter of Iris's father. Of course, I'd almost forgotten about that one.
I should have seen this coming, I suppose.
Iris told us that all the notes about the great detective's adventures and that metal chest were written by her father. Isn't that correct, Mr. Sholmes?
That is indeed what I told young Iris.
But if you're Mr. Sholmes' partner, father, and you wrote all those case notes, then Iris' father must be you. Ah.
On my word, Miss Usato. You are coming along wonderfully as well. You too have hit upon the method at last.
You finally grasped the other— What?
What?
What you've always told me, father, is that my mother died when I was born 16 years ago, and you left me in grandmother's care whilst you embarked on your study tour of Britain. And I've always accepted that, but all this about Iris. Ooh, there it is. Susato-san, ice cold stare.
No, now hold on a minute. It was very complicated. I mean, it's really not what you think.
And perhaps you'd like to explain exactly what it is? There it is. Now that eyes go from ice cold to red hot just before she—
No, really, you've got the wrong end of the stick. No, Sholmes, say something, man.
Oh, God. That's quite enough, my fiery feathers. Mr. Sholmes, when did he get all dressed up? Listen, I don't like to interrupt this exciting exploration of the past. Mikotoba and I have an urgent matter that requires a short excursion. But it's very late, Mr. Sholmes. Where must you go? Why, my dear madam, is that not obvious? My partner and I must pursue our natural enemies. So, get your coat, Mikotoba. The game is afoot.
But Sholmes, I really must give Susato a full explanation, I think.
Later, my dear fellow, later. Our carriage awaits downstairs already. What is this music?
You haven't changed one iota, have you? I mean, really, I visit our home after 10 long years, and when I open that chest in a fit of nostalgia, I quite inexplicably pass out.
This is a banger.
And as if that wasn't enough, when I eventually regained consciousness, I plunged straight into all this.
Father, please. Go with Mr. Sholmes now.
What?
I've no doubt that whatever happened, you were acting in everyone's best interests. I trust you, completely.
Susato.
And sending the great detective and his great partner off on renewed adventures together is more than I could have hoped for in my wildest dreams. The song's called Partners, the game's, but it also has a great arranged version too. I can't wait till I finish this game so I can listen to the soundtrack without fear.
Very well then, we'll speak again till later. Till later? We'll speak again later.
So, I believe your own work is done for today. I wish you the best of luck tomorrow.
Yes, Naruhodo, good luck in battle, and in reaching a decision.
Decision? About whether to go back to Japan, I suppose. I cannot.
So much happened that day that I barely knew what to do with myself.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you on that one, partner. I feel you.
It would only be later that I'd come to realize how amidst the chaos I'd unleashed were all the clues I needed to finally unearth the truth, and that all the turmoil was necessary to give me the resolve to see everything through.
Yeah, it is intermission time, actually. You're right. Oh my god. Wow, okay. I see. I see. I see. I see. Well, now I don't know what the hell to do. I can't start. Can I start Cave 5 now? I guess I could. Is the last case of this game only a trial? Couldn't be. Why? Why is this game like this? No way, man. Jesus, Lord Almighty Christ. Ugh. What am I gonna do? I'll figure it out in a bit. Let's take an intermission.